Hey there, Modern Math teacher. Welcome back to the podcast. So, over the last several episodes, we have been diving into the productive math struggle, right? Unpacking what it really means to value struggle, build math identity, create that classroom community, plan for thinking, support students in the moment, and reflect in ways that actually stick. You guys, this mini series has also connected with so many of the things that I've been doing outside of the classroom this year with my district and across our county, supporting teachers to intentionally shift our instruction to better support that productive struggle. And as part of that work, you guys, I invited some of the educators I know to share questions that they are wrestling with. And these are like real practical questions that came up when we're trying to do this work with real students. And you guys, I'm super excited because today I'm going to be joined by John SanGiovanni, one of the authors of The Productive Math Struggle. If you don't know him, he's a best-selling author. He's nationally recognized leader in mathematics education. John works as a math coordinator in Maryland. He leads curriculum and assessment development, professional learning, intervention, and school improvement planning, just to name a few of the amazing things he does. He's really passionate about developing math specialists and teacher leaders through his district work and his work at McDaniel College. He's the author of, you guys, get this, more than 24 math education books. Can you believe that? He's an international consultant, a regular conference speaker, and has served on the board of director for both the National Council for the Teachers of Mathematics and the National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics. You guys, I cannot wait to introduce you guys to John SanGiovanni as he joins me today in the podcast studio, where we're going to unpack our listeners' most asked questions. All right, welcome to the podcast, John. John, tell my listeners a little bit about who you are. They've just heard the full spiel, but anything that you're up to lately these days that they might be, curious about.
Oh, I'm up to all kinds of stuff these days, but I work in a school district. It's my day job. On the side, I get to write and speak and work with teachers across the country, which I'm really lucky to do. Right now, I'm working on a second edition of an older basic fact book, and a sequel to the topic for tonight, productive struggle,
Ooh.
around agency and the next step. So yeah, kind of a good time to be on and have a chat.
Heck yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I didn't realize that you've written over 2 dozen books. So I feel like most of your books, if I'm not wrong, they're mostly like K-8 focused, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. Because I was like, back in like the mid 2000, and we don't need to discuss what year it was. You had the Jumpstart books, and I had
Yeah.
seen the middle school one, and then I saw the high school one, and I was like, this is awesome. And then I realized, I was like, I think that's the only other one that I've read by you. But you and I were just talking off air that this came out in 2020, which is like the year to be forgotten for education. So I think that's kind of why it's making this big resurgence. And I love that. So like I just want to know like your thoughts. It's evidently been 6 years since this came out.
Mhm.
Who knew that that was real? But as you like think back and reflect on your work with the productive struggle, and now that you're thinking about productive struggle part 2, like what do you think is, I don't know, most urgent or pressing in classrooms right now? Why is it so relevant for our teachers
Oh,
today?
well, first and foremost, 2020 was a struggle in itself, right?
Yes.
Why is it so important now? Because we have, students who are struggling to find a foothold in math, right?
Mm,
And we think of that as such a negative, or there's so many gaps, and what are we going to do to get them ahead? And there's an actual opportunity there to help them develop not just life skills, but opportunities to have them develop deeper understandings of mathematics, so that they have agency to do what they want to do in the future. It's kind of funny that 2020 being that line of demarcation, and things are much different in our classrooms today, right?
oh, yes.
But at the same time, there's this perspective that before 2020, everything was utopian and it was awesome. And for many of us who've been around forever, noting the gray hair and lack of thereof, yeah, 2019 was pretty rough too. And so
Yeah.
was 2014. And when I started, like in the late 90s, was really hard too. And I guess my point is that while challenges are different, um, some things we know to be true, and that is knowing our students, helping them know themselves, and to persevere pays long term dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are right. Teaching has been challenging no matter when you started. I'm not quite in the 1990s. I experienced school in the 90s. I imagine it was also a challenge for the teachers. But I've been teaching since the early, mid 2000s or whatever. So yeah, I think you're right, and I love what you said there about them, like, building their agency and finding their identity in the math classroom. That's something that's so important and something that I think, that curriculum these days kind of lends itself more to letting our students explore and be who they wanna be and think about math in the way that they wanna think about math. Like, back when I was in school, and maybe this was true for you too, it was very much like, "We are doing these exact notes, and you will copy it down as quickly as you can because it's going to move off of the chalkboard or the, overhead projector." That was always my favorite, and then you're going to do the
Mhm.
exact same problems in the exact same way I did over and over again,
Yeah,
and I think we're at a
yeah,
different stage
that's
now.
well, I think we're moving towards a different stage now. I don't know that we're all there yet, right? And
Mm,
that's no discount to any of our teachers or any of our colleagues. First and foremost, many of us experienced mathematics where we just mimicked what the teacher did and didn't have to necessarily understand it; just had to produce a result that matched, right?
yep,
And that became problematic for some of us. Even those of us that work in secondary settings who can do math, we may not know the math as deeply as we would like to
yeah,
because of the experiences that we had. And as we started about this conversation that things were hard before 2020, that's not to discount the fact that there are real challenges today. There
yeah,
are,
absolutely.
and challenges change, but the work remains intense. I think one of the challenges that many of us face is that we are straddling this time period of reproducing low level rote mathematics and trying to develop something that's deeper that transcends or transfers across
Yeah.
content areas, and that is thinking, reasoning, confidence, and all those other things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so hard for our students to um, develop confidence. What I'm seeing in my classroom, at least, is with like the pushback from their parents because they experienced it similarly
Mm.
to the way that like I experienced it back in my past, and they're all like, "What's this new math? And why can they explore all of these ways?" And then, I get my son, he's 10, his friend or his parents, his friend's parents, whatever, you know what I mean? They're texting me
Yep.
and they're like, "I don't understand what he's doing and why he's drawing these things, but he can explain it so much better than I ever knew how and why I'm dividing a fraction by a fraction and what that means." And I'm like, "Perfect. I'm so glad."
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that too, because this idea of new math, it's been around maybe since the dawn of the Common Core. The math
Everything's
isn't new. It's been around for 10,000 years.
Yep.
It's new to some of us that didn't have access to it because of
Mhm.
decisions made by other gatekeepers historically in the
Oh,
United
yes.
States. We sometimes look at other countries with envy in their math performance, and the understanding that we're pursuing today is what they have been teaching for some time, right? But you talk about parents, which I think is hilarious as well. I go to a lot of social events and hear parents complain and talk about their kids. My kids are a little bit older now, but I remember 10 years ago. The point
Yeah.
is simply this: they talk about how much they hate math when they were kids, and they talk about how much they hate the new math and how they want their kids to have the same experience that they had, and that those two things are just the exact opposite, right?
Right, exactly, yeah, I'm like, "Guys, no, you really do want us to be teaching them to think for themselves, to develop these new strategies, to
Well,
become confident, and not just these little, like, robots." Like, oh my gosh,
but the truth
you're
is, many adults, adult math, that's what adulting with math.
yes, mhm,
The math that they adult with is not stuff that they were taught. It is
no,
fundamentally accurate, and it's things that we're trying to teach our kids, which is another work of mine around fluency, but not basic facts. But this idea that the way that many of us do mental math as adults are things that we probably should. Well, we're expected to teach children today because
yeah.
it's not new.
Right. No, it's not new. No, I'm exploring imaginary and complex numbers with my algebra 2 students this week, and they're like, "Nope, this is imaginary. This literally says it's made up, Miss Moore." And I was like, "Listen, let's break down the number system and talk about how everything was made up at once." And then we've all just agreed, like, that's a pretty useful thing. We should know that, and we should be able to work kind of flexibly within this. And
Yeah, great
they're
point.
yeah, right. Their little minds are just being blown right now. They're like, wait. integers or like negative numbers had to be invented, fractions had to be invented. I was like, yeah, we
There's
just didn't tell
the
you
number
that.
zero had to be invented.
Yes. I was like, what happens if your chicken laid no eggs? What did you describe that as? They're like, zero. I was like,
Right?
that didn't exist back then. You had to
It didn't
decide
exist at
for
the
it.
time, right?
I
Entire
know. Oh,
civilizations may have crumbled because of it, but a conversation for another day.
that's right. That's right. I love it. All right. So thinking about productive struggle and how we
Yeah.
are shifting our kids into like thinking more in these classrooms, hopefully, ideally, right? Okay, so let's read from the questions from my teachers. All right. What is one small low prep change you think that teachers could do tomorrow? Tomorrow in their classroom. That would be a Wednesday on that would have a meaningful impact on their thinking.
Hmm.
What regardless of what
One
curriculum they
small
have,
change.
a small
Yeah.
change to help them engage their students in thinking or in productive
Yep.
struggle.
I think one thing that I would recommend, and many of us weren't trained to do it, and that is very simply just after selecting a task or looking at the task for the next day, just anticipating doing it ourselves, taking a moment to do it ourselves, and then anticipate what students might do, right? And think about what are some of the strategies they might use, what are some misconceptions that they might have, why that is. And you don't have to predict everything. Nobody is Nostradamus in that capacity, but at the same time, it positions you to have a better idea of what they might do and then how you might respond to that, where the struggle might occur. Um, I was led to believe that struggle is something you respond to in the moment,
Mhm.
right? But actually, it's
Yeah.
something we can prep for and respond to with intention.
Yeah, absolutely. I love thinking about preparing for the lesson and trying it ahead of time. Depending on how many preps you have as a teacher, sometimes it's not always super time management possible. But I at my school,
Mm.
we're piloting new curriculum right now. And so
Mhm.
everything is new. And now there's like teams of us going through these. And you're right, just the fact that we're working through the lesson and the activities ahead of time, we have so much more like wealth of knowledge to lean on when my kids are then in the moment in the classroom. And sure, it
Yeah.
it takes me a little bit of extra time to prep, but that's the prep work that I would so much rather do than, sitting there and assigning or grading 30 different math problems.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Aren't you? You're crazy. I mean, actually, 30 different math problems is struggle, but that's a different kind of
Yeah,
struggle that we're not going to get into tonight.
I
Um,
know.
but that notion of destructive struggle. But back
Yeah,
to your point, yeah, a new curriculum does require you to. I mean, it's extra work. We know that, right?
yeah.
But it does require that level of prep, and often you see a bump in the short term with new curriculum, and I suspect that may be one of the reasons why. But I have no research to back that up.
Just anecdotal, and that's totally fine because that's true. Like
Mhm,
anyone who's
mhm,
adopted a new curriculum or changed schools and now has to try to teach something differently,
mm,
you're going to prepare for it differently. So you're just ready for the kids in a
that's right.
different way, which I love. Okay, so in the middle and high school though, when we're asking these kids in particular to like try something that is new and challenging, a lot of them want to shut down. They're like, I'm just
Mhm.
not good at math. I'm not going to try. This is not for me. And so I love that in here in your book, you've got that they need to be fostering a positive math identity and building that classroom community. So any like, what do you think are ways that teachers could maybe effectively normalize this mistake making and show them as valuable learning opportunities?
Yeah. So before we even get to the mistake thing, I think especially in the secondary, middle school, high school classrooms, one of the challenges we face is there's a lot of content that we need to teach, and as science or math people, we often don't think about the touchy feely side of teaching, right? And
You are
so,
so right.
um, knowing our kids in that way and like making math a human endeavor is not our jam, and that's been a historic thing. So I say all that to you because actually taking time routinely to invest in who are you, what strengths do you have relative to mathematics, and it's not always about calculation, but like you solve puzzles, you do other things well, and seeing the relevance in the math and yourself in that, is a part to repair that identity. And in defense of a lot of our students who are now in seventh grade and have had a pretty crappy experience for 6 years per se,
Yep.
um, and now to be like, oh, come on, you can do it. Well, I have 6 years of evidence says I can't, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna bet on me. And so I say all those things because the work to repair that is a necessary endeavor, but can be really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Vanessa Vaccaria talks about that a lot too. Like the
Yep.
mass trauma that we're all holding on to is it's just so real. And a lot of these kids, like you're saying, they've experienced that negativity over and over again. So especially, I don't know what it's like in Maryland, but in Michigan, algebra 2 is like the last required math class. So
Hmm.
I get these kids at the end of their like mathematical journeys and
Yeah.
I'm doing what I can to help them, see math a little bit differently. And it can be a hard turnaround for them to be like, "No, I have sucked at math forever, Miss Moore. You are full of crap. I can't do it." And I'm like,
Right.
"What can I do, to make that small shift for these older students to help them see that?"
Well, and I think that one of the things that um, we can work on is taking more time to know who our students are and to provide opportunities that not just algebra 2 per se, but opportunities to do math and to tinker and to persevere
Yeah.
that don't look like math and to call out the strengths in those settings, to develop. And one of the actions is about supporting productive struggle. Is like, well, how do I support them when they're stuck? Much of that work
Mhm.
actually happens before they're stuck. And so I think that this takes quite a bit of time. It's hard for a teacher ourselves to say like, I'm going to fix it this year, right? I
Yeah.
don't know if that's possible, but working with colleagues to try to make that change for all of us over the course of a couple of years is probably a worthwhile endeavor as well. And again, it's not just about their identities, right? But like teaching students, I mean, humans want to be able to think, right? We are
Yeah.
a thinking species, but that makes the assumption that it's just an organic thing.
Mm.
You have to be taught how to teach, or not to teach, but well, that too, but to think, right? You need experiences. Like, hey, one of the things you do is compare and contrast these two things and see how they're the same and different. I wasn't
Yeah.
taught to do that specifically in math. But like when you look at two systems of equations, that's exactly what you might do is compare and contrast how they're the same and different and why you would choose one solution path over another, right?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I love being able to build in like those micro moments of like here's a way that we can think
Oh,
and reason about this. And then they can apply
yeah.
it later.
That's actually a great point. And I think micro moments, those teaching moments, I think they were called once upon a time, right? But
Yeah.
like a school or a team settling on what those are and thinking about what they could be across a grade or across a department has potential legs that we teach and reinvest those five things repeatedly so that students have something to hook on to, if you will, when they are
Yeah,
stuck. To be fair, we all get stuck, right? And at some point, we're all like,
absolutely.
I'm done. And so the goal that we're trying to work with our students is like, hey, your first move isn't to give up. That's like move
Mm.
three, right?
Right. Right. I'm gonna need you to do something before you give up. And so that actually does bring up one of the questions the teachers asked me for your advice. She asked, how do you decide when to step in during the productive struggle and when to just let it
Mm.
continue?
Yeah, that is such a good question with no answer. That's what's beautiful about
Right.
it. Actually, I say there is an answer actually. So this is where that the value of knowing our students and keeping tabs on them across the year and being observant, which all teachers are, and like it's a feel. And there's some days you're going to jack it up and like wait too long to interfere, and it becomes like, and that happens, right? And there's
Yeah.
other days where you step in too soon, you're like, you'll never know that it was there. But then there's a lot of days that it's just right, and you try to reflect on who and how long they took. And I say all this too because I think there are two moves to answer the question. One, keeping tabs of who our students are and how they're changing. They're not static
Mhm.
humans.
Yep.
And two, and I know we do this, but like thinking about reflecting every day, I know we all do to some extent, but it's often like the flashpoints of the day and
Mhm.
trying to find a way of like, man, that was the thing that worked today. How do I replicate that in the future? Or who did that work with and what were my moves? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I'm in a district right now where we have 10 minutes between classes because we're on a block
Mm.
schedule. So, getting kids through 85 minutes of algebra 2, they better be engaged, and it better not be in
Good
an
grief.
unproductive struggle because that will just be the worst, right? But my favorite part is that I've got colleagues in the hall and after every class, we'll just go and we'll say, like, this is what worked for this kid. This was a great
Oh,
moment in my
brilliant.
class, or like, this was a terrible moment. What is your advice? What could I do next time?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Um, that collaboration with colleagues is important. And it's funny you say that too, because when you think about we talked about earlier with the anticipation, that's something that potentially comes out through collaborative planning. And I
Mhm.
think, collaborative planning is something that um, may not occur as much as we'd like,
Right.
right? And when it does, sometimes it becomes division of labor. You
Mhm.
make the copies, you get this, you get that, as
Oh, yeah.
opposed
I'm in
to
charge
the
of the
exchange of
spreadsheet
it.
every time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I've been there too. As a team leader, I mean, I did those things, and like, I guess my point is that the evolution of um, what collaborative planning can be. I'm not saying it's going to solve all of our problems, but it can position us to be in a better place. Um, that conversation with your colleague in that 10 minutes is so huge.
Yeah, right? And I love that because you're right. Collaborative planning in real time can't happen for a lot of teachers. They don't have the same prep. Or maybe
Nope.
their favorite
Well, but we
teaching
could make a better
software.
move.
Yeah.
Sorry to talk
No,
over
I
you, but
love it.
that's a request of administration. Like, hey, we see the value. This is how we're going to do it. We need to make a plan that works. There are
Yes.
schools all over this country that have collaborative planning. So somebody figured it out.
Oh, preach.
How's
Yes.
that
If we could
possible?
all get that, right? I'll you know what? We could probably just ask Chat GPT these days how that's possible, and it could just make that
Hey,
schedule for us,
here's our
right?
schedule. Can you refine it for me?
Yeah. Can't all things be solved and saved through AI these days?
Well, they
That's
might be able to. I actually think that that's a really interesting conversation that we're not going to have tonight, right? But our students today go to a tool, as they
Mhm.
should, to find something that is maybe not, I don't know how to put it, that important to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's so
Um,
true.
and so maybe there is a challenge there for us to think about what needs to be done in the moment, human to human, because there's things that I do every day with other adults. And there are things that, like, I'll just pop up chat myself, right? Why do we
Yeah,
restrict that from 12-year-olds? I don't know.
right?
Mainly
They
because I remember being a 12-year-old
Yes,
and the
yes,
mistakes I
yeah,
made.
right? No,
But I
I
think you
love it.
understand my point.
And it's a great tool too, and you're right, I could talk about AI forever. But I hear what you're saying there with, like, what can schools and districts do? And so that was one of the questions from, one of the county leaders that I'm working with. They asked, as a leader in a school or a district, what is it that they can do to help both teachers and students redefine struggle as, like, positive, necessary, a good part of math when they're so used to it
That
being
is,
the worst?
yeah. I mean, I think that is actually baked into our first action, the idea of
Mhm.
valuing struggle, and how most humans perceive struggle to be a negative thing. And so the work as a leader, with other teachers and really with students, like, how do we socialize the idea that struggle is an opportunity for learning? It's a natural part of life, and learning to cope with it and navigate it is more than it's bigger than algebra one, right? And I
Yes.
think that actually most parents want that for their kid more than algebra one, right?
Yeah.
They want their kids to be able to think and reason and persevere. And so I say all this to you because many of our tests, which I'm not going to get into right now, like, they're only going after the content knowledge, and we
Mhm.
miss the other part of, like, we teach humans.
Yes.
We teach more than math, as a colleague Robert Berry says a lot, and I think that's so important to keep embrace. So, or keep in mind. So I would say that to other leaders as well. How do we, and there are things to do, of course, socialize this idea that struggle is actually something we value.
Yeah. Right,
Hey,
and
by the way, there's a
yeah.
double entendre there that we kind of missed in the book
Oh,
originally, but I speak about it now. When we talk about value productive struggle, right, there's actually two sides to that. One side is the idea that we have to value it. But the other side
okay.
is there's actually value to it, and what the literature says about that. If you look like at Hattie's visible learning, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah, yeah.
um, right, all the things that are really powerful, while productive struggle is not named in any of those things, it incorporates all of those things.
Right, it's like the undercurrent there. It's like, yep,
It
that's
is, yeah,
all of this is
like,
productive struggle.
self-efficacy is the result of a struggle, right?
Mhm.
That being one of the important things, and many others. So I guess my point is that the value like we need to value it and see that it has value, but also see that by using it, developing it, etc., we are producing results.
Yeah. Absolutely. There, and you're right. And we've just gotta, reframe that for the parents. Let them see that, like, hey, actually, there is value to this. We're going to be developing those more um yeah,
Oh,
autonomous
well,
individuals, developing their agency.
right. Well, that's a good point about agency as well. But partnering with parents to help them know what they can do to help to support their students at home, right? I think there's other things that we can do as a math leader, and I've had to work on in our district as well. Is giving not giving permission, but actually requiring or asking our teachers to spend time reinforcing positive and productive dispositions in mathematics, actually measuring that through surveys and other things, and setting school improvement plans that look to maintain student dispositions or improve them over the course of the year. So those are some things, like there's a lot of things that are really tangible things as well, like those. Thinking about what we establish for community and how do we give teachers permission every 3 or 4 weeks to reinvest in classroom community, as opposed to we just taught lesson 4.3, now we're going to do 4.4, now we're going to do 4.5.
Yes.
Like that's really not the exchange of math that we're looking for.
Right? No, I love that. And so you're right. In your book, oh my gosh, I have so many things written in here. But thinking about establishing that community, but it's maintaining it, right? Like so many of us at the beginning of
Ah,
the
that was my point
semester, we're like,
earlier. Yeah,
hey, here's a survey,
check.
here's a get to know you. Yes, it's a check mark instead of a how do we continuously foster and build this throughout the semester?
That's one of the things I was talking about earlier, and I didn't say it very well, but you crushed it there. And that is, getting to know you is not the first day of the semester or the
Yeah.
first day of the year or the first week. It's actually something that, and same with norms and communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this joke in elementary schools where kids get together and write the rules, and we put them on a poster, and everybody signs it like it's a Declaration of Independence, and we're going to follow those, right?
Yep. Oh yes.
They are rules. They don't actually govern community. Community is like what happens when Kristen is struggling. How does
Yeah.
she like, how does she support it? How does she deal with her frustrations? What do we accept in our classroom? And I guess those aren't rules; those are norms.
Yeah.
But I say all that to you because you crushed in the idea of like we can't just do this once; we have to do it throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as I was reading it, I kept making myself notes. I'm like, what is it something that I could do? And in my classroom, I change seats for my students. They sit in their groups, but every unit they get a new seat. And I was like, that could be so simple is, one of the picture activities in here. Just have them go get their phones. They're going to be excited that they don't have to go put it up in the little phone caddy right away. Grab your phone, share a picture, talk about some of the numbers, and, like, learn
Ah,
about each other for a few minutes.
and that's why I love that you picked up on that, and you're exactly right. So one of the things that happens in classrooms often is we change up our groups, right?
Yeah,
And we assume that everybody knows everybody because we know all of them, but they have their friends and who they hang out with and things of that nature. I say all this to you because it's really hard to work with a group when you don't know who the hell is in the group.
yes.
And so if you think about when you go to professional learning or you go to something and it's a big mix and you're like, oh, I got to
Nope.
work with people. I don't even know
Yeah,
who they
where are
are. I
my
just want to stay
people?
on my seat. Where are my people?
Where are
Right.
my
So
people?
the opportunity that we have is like if you're making new groups once a week or whatever, once a month or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, like reinvesting in these are your people, finding their connections. We know that when humans have connections, right, they are
Yep.
more productive, they're safe, they're more willing to take risks. Like I'm not going to take a risk when my teacher comes around with 3 people I don't even know. That is
Yeah,
going to, especially for our children, our students today, that has potential to be on the internet or on Instagram forever. I'm not doing
forever.
that,
Oh my gosh,
right?
no.
And one of the things I actually read about the book, and it's such a low level thing, I know that, but like when you set new groups, having name tags and something on the name tag decorated like something about you, so that I mean, one of the things is hard, like just hearing your name and saying someone else's name contributes to conversation. um
Mhm.
and we're like, why do you know each other's name? Well, because we have only been in this class once together. And so I say all that too because those are great things we could do
Yeah, you're right, and so
easily.
I definitely I got a bad sub report the other day, and so I just quick changed my seats, and I didn't do a community reconnect with them, and today in my classroom, it was like crickets when it was work time, and normally they're, like, bustling and they're, like, helping each other, especially we're exploring a whole new number system. They don't know what the heck a complex number is yet. They're still trying to
Right?
figure that out. There was silence, and I was like one part of me was like, "Oh, this is normally my loudest class of the day. This is glorious." And the other part was like, "Oh, crap. I made a mistake."
Yep, something bad happened here. Yep, yep.
Yep, yeah,
Yeah.
I ruined the community. Whoops.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a good one. It's funny how you there are telltale signs when you have poked
Yeah.
the bear or messed something up on your own, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there is. There is.
But
All right.
I think the other thing, and we talk about in the last action, is this idea of reflecting on things. And so you reflect, you're like, something's not right here, right? But
Mhm.
also, we often do exit tickets and things to reflect on like the content. But one
Yep.
thing that we could do easily once every 2 weeks or so is reflect on how you persevered this week. Because I think a lot of kids, students have figured out that sometimes we're full of it. I want you to keep trying, but there is no acknowledgement, award, or value in it. So why am I going to do that?
Yeah. You're right. And dropping it into an exit ticket or, how whatever and cool down or whatever you want to call it at the end of the day, or even an entry ticket, like what's one thing you could do to persevere today? Like set yourself a goal. Right?
Mhm.
That's so simple. And so many of us already have that as a routine in our classrooms. So just making that swap from content to like the actual like context and thinking at
Yeah,
the other things, the fluffy things we don't have time for,
yeah,
as some people
yeah.
say. Yeah, you're
Yep,
right,
yep.
that's so simple.
Well, I
So
don't know about
simple.
simple,
Well,
but I will say that it might be hard at first for students to do that because nobody's asked them to ever pause and think like, "Hey, what went wrong this week, and what did you do about it?"
that's
Right?
true.
That could be the harder thing to answer. That could be the hardest thing they've ever had to answer. Um, and so, yeah, I think those are things. And then the other thing is we have to actually read those after they write them, but that's a different conversation for another day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Alright, so I don't wanna keep you too long, but I do have a couple
That's right.
rapid fire questions for you if you're up for it.
Cool.
Okay, we'll see
Sure.
how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Alright, question 1, what is one belief about math teaching that you wish could change system-wide? One
There's
belief,
one way to
okay.
do it. There's one way to do it. Better yet, there's one best way to do it. You talk about humans are divergent thinkers. Sorry, I know you want the quick answer,
Yeah. No,
but
no, I
trying to
love it,
make
go.
everybody do math the same way is the most ludicrous bull I've ever heard of.
You can swear, it's totally fine. I do it too.
Sorry, you can
It
beat
is
that part out. Or just cut it.
100%. Oh, no, this is raw and real. I do minimal editing here. My
Oh,
listeners know that. I love it.
here's another
Perfect.
thing. Faster is better. Think about this. If you drive home every day from work and you cross a bridge, think to yourself, I really hope this bridge was built quickly.
Nope.
Right? Nothing in your
Absolutely
world do you
not.
want to have done quickly, but math is the one thing that we only value if you're quick because we have a 1912 perspective of what is smart. But I digress. Question
Oh,
number two.
preach. I love it. Okay. With everything that teachers are navigating right now, what keeps you optimistic about math education?
So many teachers that are listening to this that are showing up for PD and that are learning and trying and being vulnerable themselves and recognizing that they need to learn more. And the fun thing is, like we all do. Speaking of which, so this book came out in 2020,
Yeah,
and so people are like, you know everything about struggle. Spoiler, I don't at all. I have a lot of good ideas from a decade's worth of work on the idea, but at the same
right?
time, I'm still learning a lot every day.
I'm pretty sure that's why there's a volume 2 coming out now, right?
Yeah, well, the volume two is a different sequence, but it doesn't matter.
All right, all right, all right. I like it. Okay, so if teachers walk away with just one takeaway from this book before they get geared to read the next one and this mini series, what do you hope it is?
Oh man,
I know.
I, um, a positive review on Amazon. How's that sound?
I love it. You guys, you heard it. We're gonna put that in the links. You can go get the
I'm
book.
just
Give it a
playing.
positive
I'm just
review.
playing. I want them to walk away with something that helps them further their craft, right? In
Yeah.
pursuit of helping students and humans just be humans. Like in the context of math, learning in the context of other things, like what does it mean to persevere,
Yeah.
right? And to help students see that they are competent and confident and able. That doesn't mean you have to be great at math, but know that you can take it on and be successful. So I say all those things to you because I think the thing I want them to walk away with is um, there's something new they can add to their toolbox, and that is what it was. Finding something in the book and doing that.
Doing that. I love that. Taking one nugget away. Okay, beautiful. Well, John, this has been so fun chatting with you today. Thank you so much
Same.
for coming on the Modern Math Teacher podcast. Where can all my listeners catch up with you after the pod?
Who knows? So I have a small website, Sanjo Math, but that's where you can see like the workshops I do and other books and topics that I've written about. I also can be accessed through email there. I'm old school email. I'm
Love it.
lucky to do what I do and work with teachers across the country, and I encourage anybody to send a note. I may not have the answers, but I have an opinion, typically informed, and
That's
so I
important.
will share that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Informed opinions. Well, we won't talk about that these days.
Oh
Anyhow,
gosh, that's a whole nother podcast.
that's a whole other podcast we're not doing tonight. But anyhow, yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks for what you do. And I say that sincerely because it's this type of work, supporting our colleagues, networking with them, that moves us all forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Sean. This has been a true pleasure chatting with you. Mona was right. You're a delight to talk to. So,
Ah,
thanks again for coming on. And Modern Math teachers, thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Until next time, you guys keep engaging your students in that productive struggle. And as always, keep it real. Bye, guys.
that's right.